At this time, I'd like to recognize the gentleman from Georgia for 5 minutes, Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the witnesses. Thank you for your service. As I listen to not just to the testimony, but the people asking the questions, a lot of us have served overseas. A lot of us have a lot of joint service. So, right around here, I'm looking at Air Force, Navy, Marine, Army, literally right in a row. People are your brothers in arms, asking you questions, understanding that you guys were there and you did that, and we appreciate your service and appreciate your testimony today. A lot of us, when we talk about the withdrawal, for example, I remember when the withdrawal was happening, it's probably one of the worst adult experiences I've had in my life. That may sound over dramatic. You know, I wasn't even there, but yet anybody who served and understands the people we've lost, the friends we visited, the grave sites, the time we spent away from our family, the months and years even that we spent away from our families, all of us, the traumatic brain injuries, the limbs lost, 2,461 deaths, trillions of dollars, 20 years of investment to give it back to the people who now are harboring, I think, 27 bases that are training terrorists now. That hurts, and I'm not over it yet, and I don't think any of us are. And so when I hear people talk about, well, we just need to learn lessons, you're right, we do need to learn lessons, and that's what this is about. You've already talked, Colonel, I really appreciate you talking about some of the different things that we've made mistakes on, the timing, the manning, the location, all of the witnesses have talked about. One of the things that we haven't really totally addressed, in my opinion, was the command climate, and this goes all the way to the top. I'm an ER doctor. I'm also a military pilot, military ER doctor, as a matter of fact. Both in the ER and in the cockpit, when things start going wrong, I've empowered everybody in the room to stop me. I don't like to land here. I don't feel comfortable. There's something wrong with this, the way we're approaching. There's something wrong with the way we're doing our mission. In the ER, if I'm given the wrong drug or given the wrong command, anybody in the room can question me at the time. That's a command climate, which keeps me from making mistakes. The question is, as you commanders or boots on the ground were executing the mission as you saw it, but you were giving feedback, I assume in the same command climate, I don't feel comfortable with this. Do you feel like you were empowered and had been heard and acknowledged in your concerns? I'll start with the colonels.
Within the military structure and the plan, there was a lot of transparency on the options that we presented and then the directive that and the orders that we received that we needed to execute. As I had remarked earlier, there was some shock, or there's a lot of shock. There was some cynicism because a lot of us had a really bad feeling of what was going to happen. However, I will say that the military leaders, General McKenzie, General Milley, you know, they do what we do in the military. They followed orders. They did the best that they could with this, and we executed the best that we had the ability to do it. And there were some tough days. You know, having to watch General McKenzie get on TV and talk about Abbey Gate was really, really difficult. And he had a serious burden to carry on his shoulders. And I think what gets you through that is knowing that we're doing the best that we can in the military. We executed the best that we could, but the pill that is impossible to swallow is that it was all wrapped up and washed away with failure to include all the hope for the Afghanis.
100%. When you are in charge, you have got to listen to feedback from people, and your subordinates have to believe that, have to have the psychological confidence that they can go to you and they can say, boss, I think this is wrong, and here's the reasons why, here's what I think we ought to do instead. I'm not privy to the inner workings of those conversations in this particular incident. I do know that historically, it's a good thing that Lincoln didn't listen to McClellan, for instance. FDR disagreed with Marshall about going to, Marshall wanted to go right into France in 1942, and FDR said, no, we're going to go into North Africa. Truman disagreed with MacArthur about the atomic bomb. So it's not unusual for leaders to take all that in because they have to look at a wider aperture and maybe make an unpopular decision. So I'm just speaking historically. I'm not.
So let's get into that real
justifying.
quick, if I may, because we're running short on time. But it's interesting. You're right. And when we make the right decision, we're all hailed for it.
Right.
But when we make the wrong decision, the only way to learn from it is to say, I made the wrong decision. The problem is, in this case, and Command Sergeant Major, I know that you would look at the board, your command structure, all the way to the very top. Who's at the top of your chain of command?
That's the President of the United States, sir.
President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief. Now, we can say when McClellan and Lincoln disagreed. We can say when Ike or anybody else disagreed. We can talk about when generals are relieved. And we can learn from those lessons. But we cannot learn from a lesson when it's an abject failure and no admission of any mistakes. We talk about learning when my friends across the aisle say, we just need to learn from this. We need to stop playing politics with it. But we cannot learn if we do not admit mistakes. And that's the problem I'm talking about, the command climate. I can't learn if my patient dies on the table and nobody can tell me that I did anything wrong in the ER. I can't learn, certainly, if I crash my helicopter and anybody dies from my mistake. In this case, I feel like we crashed and learned nothing because we can't even admit the mistakes that we made from the very top. And that's my concern, because if we're going to go into this, look, we even have a problem right now. We continue policy, and we don't talk about this very much, but we're continuing to spend billions of dollars. Now, this doesn't have to do with the withdrawal directly, but this has to do with what's happening right now. The American people need to know. The Afghan fund, which has basically subsequently been transferred $3.5 billion in seized assets from the fund with the purpose of stabilizing the Afghan central banking system. Of course, the Taliban basically takes that and uses it for whatever they want to. We're supporting a terrorist organization, essentially, in the idea that we're doing something right. This is continued failed policy because we haven't learned from our mistakes. This is what drives me crazy. We have a command climate inside of our own government that doesn't listen to our military leaders who know what they're doing, doesn't listen to Congress or anybody else because they think they know best, and they continue to screw it up. That's a bad command climate. I don't care if we're talking politics or military or anything else. And that's what we have to learn from. That's what we're here for today. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield.